Yes, Eugene, up this way.
Yes, Eugene.
No.
Last night saying we should go into the class. I think we should. Yeah, so we should do that. Yeah.
Your mic's on again. Yeah, that mic.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome here today. Now, a graveyard is a sacred and a spiritual place, and while we have a veritable Parnassus of readers today, we will ask that you will refrain from applauding when they are finished speaking, and any applause that we will have will be later on down in the hall. A spiritual experience, and this is the 50th anniversary of Patrick Kavanagh's death. Patrick Kavanagh lies here. He lies here with his wife Catherine. Just beside him are his sisters Annie and Mary, and just back here behind in the ferns is his brother Peter, his sacred keeper. Further on towards the centre are where his father and mother lie, James and Bridget. So we can reflect on all of that as we are here. Now, there are many people here who have relations in this graveyard, and this is, appropriately, the month of November, when the dead are remembered. And now, without anything else to say, I will ask the readers who will come up in the order that they know has been prepared.
O stony grey soil of Monaghan, the laugh from my love you thieved. You took the gay child of my passion and gave me your clod conceived. You clogged the feet of my boyhood, and I believed that my stumble had the stride and poise of Apollo, and his voice my thick-tongued mumble. You told me the plough was immortal. O green life-conquering plough, you mandrel strained, your coulter blunted in the smooth lay field of my brow. You sang on steaming dunghills a song of cowards' brood. You perfumed my clothes with weaselage. You fed me with swinish food. You flung a ditch on my vision of beauty, love and truth. O stony grey soil of Monaghan, you burgled my bank of youth. Lost the long hours of pleasure, all the women that loved young men. Can I still stroke the monster's back, or write with unpoisoned pen his name in these lonely verses, or mention the dark fields where the first gay flight of my lyric got caught in a peasant's prayer? Mulnahinch, Drumerl, Black Shanco. Wherever I turn, I see in the stony grey soil of Monaghan dead loves that were born for me.
Igivna Mwahar. Nis muine martis to the lee fuin creilioch sa relig muinachan. Chiam hu. Ig siúlat sias lana na gran huiblog. The valach higan slashun, no the valach sonna higan dara hafran gonach sa tauru. Kasten tu lom is ger. Na jarment arkni na mehiach. Da hirula da ra is an a hen na hangel kelch. Smuinia mart. Tu ag siúl amara kin da kirkja glas and vehev. Ko hamlan da huivnes, ko lan da gas. Bulamid gan cynne le céile I cionna walla. Lá éine is a níad an na maragaí fad de dheanú, higlann siúl le céile, idir na shoppi is na stananí, sir a sráid na artharacha na smuinteoireachta. Ó níl tú I de lí faoin Chléirchín mar tá tróna fórán anis, agus támuid si carnú na grúach fér, a gunne hallas na gealaí, is tú I miongaire a níos orin go sírí. In memory of my mother, I do not think of you lying in the wet clay of a Monaghan graveyard. I see you walking down a lane among the poplars, or on your way to the station, or happily going to second mass on a summer Sunday. You meet me and you say, don't forget to see about the cattle. Among your earthiest words, the angels stray. And I think of you walking along a headland of green oats in June, so full of repose, so rich with life. And I see us meeting at the end of town on a fair day by accident after. The bargains are all made and we can talk together through the shops and the stalls and markets, free in the oriental streets of thought. Oh, you are not lying in the wet clay, for it is harvest evening now, and we are piling up the ricks against the moonlight, and you smile up at us eternally.
Come dance with Kitty Stobling. No, no, no. I know I was not important as I moved through the colourful country. I was but a single item in the picture, the namer, not the beloved. O tedious man with whom no gods commingle, beauty, who has described beauty? Once upon a time I had a myth that was a lie, but it served. Trees walking across the crests of hills, and my rhyme cavorting on mile-high stilts, and the unnerved crowds looking up with terror in their rational faces. Oh, dance with Kitty Stobling, I outrageously cried out of sense to them, while their timorous paces stumbled behind Job's page boy, paging me. I had a very pleasant journey, thank you sincerely for giving me my madness back, or nearly.
They laughed at one I loved, the triangular hill that hung under the big fort. They said that I was bounded by the white thorn hedges of the little farm and did not know the world. But I knew that love's doorway to life is the same doorway everywhere. Ashamed of one I loved, I flung her from me and called her a ditch, although she was smiling at me with violets. And now I am back in her briery arms. The dew of an Indian summer morning lies on bleached potato stalks. What age am I? I do not know what age I am. I am no mortal age. I know nothing of women, nothing of cities. I cannot die unless I move outside these white thorn hedges.
Thank you, thank you. Written as an epilogue to a series of lectures given at University College Dublin. Particularly if you yourself have been left, as they call it, on the shelf. All God's children got wings, so the black Alabaman sings. Down Grafton Street on Saturdays. Don't grieve like Marcus Aurelius, who said that though he grew old and grey, the people of the Appian Way were always the same pleasant age, 24 on average. I can never help reflecting of coming back in another century from now and feeling comfortable at a buzzing coffee table, the students in 2056 with all their old eternal tricks. The thing that I most glory in is this exciting, unvarying quality that withal is completely original. For what it teaches is just this: we are not alone in our loneliness. Others have been here and known griefs we thought our special own, problems that we could not solve, lovers that we could not have, pleasures that we missed by inches. Come, I'm beginning to get pretentious, beginning to message forth instead of expressing how glad I am to have lived to feel the radiance of a holy hearing audience and delivered God's commands into those caressing hands. My personality, that's to say, all that is mine exclusively. What wisdom's ours, if such there be, is a flavour of personality. I thank you, and I say how proud I am that I have been by fate allowed to stand here, having the joyful chance to claim my inheritance. For most have died the day before the opening of that holy door.
There will be bluebells growing under the big trees, and you will be there, and I will be there in May. For some other reason, we will both have to delay the evening in Duinnchinn to please some imagined relation, so both of us came to walk through that plantation. We will be interested in the grass, in an old bucket hoop, in the ivy that weaves green incongruity among dead leaves. We will put on surprise at carts that pass, only sometimes looking sideways at the bluebells in the plantation and never frighten them with too wild an exclamation. We will be wise. We will not let them guess that we are watching them, or they will pose, a mere facade like boys caught out in virtue's naturalness. We will not impose on the bluebells in that plantation too much of our desire's adulation. We will have other loves, or so they'll think, the primroses, or the ferns, or the briars, or even the rusty paling wires, or the violets on the sunless sorrel bank. Only as an aside, the bluebells in the plantation will mean a thing or two to our dark contemplation. We'll know love little by little, glance by glance. Ah, the clay under these roots is so brown. We'll steal from heaven while God is in the town. I caught an angel smiling in a chance look through the tree trunks of the plantation as you and I walked slowly to the station.
Memory of my father. Every old man I see reminds me of my father, when he had fallen in love with death one time when sheaves were gathered. That man I saw in Gardiner Street stumble on the curb was one. He stared at me half-eyed. I might have been his son. And I remember the musician faltering over his fiddle in Bayswater, London. He too set me the riddle. Every old man I see in October-coloured weather seems to say to me, I was once your father.
Father Matt. In the dim corners and the side seats, faces gather, lit up now and then by a guttering candle, and the ghost of day at the window. A secret lover is saying 3 Hail Marys that she who knows the ways of women will bring Kathleen O'Hara. He names her, home to him. Ironic fate, Kathleen herself is saying 3 Hail Marys to her who knows the ways of men, to bring somebody else home to her. Oh, may he love me. What is the Virgin Mary now to do? From a confessional, the voice of Father Matt's absolving rises and falls like a briar in the breeze. As Father Matt walked home, Venus was in the western sky, and there were voices in the hedges. God the gay is not the wise. Take your choice. Take your choice, called the breeze through the bridge's eye. The domestic virgin and her child, or Venus with her ecstasy.
Advent. We have tested and tasted too much lover. Through a chink too wide there comes in no wonder. But here in the Advent darkened room, where the dry black bread and the sugarless tea of penance will charm back the luxury of a child's soul, we'll return to doom the knowledge we stole but could not use. And the newness that was in every stale thing when we looked at it as children, the spirit-shocking wonder in a black slanting Ulster hill, or the prophetic astonishment in the tedious talking of an old fool, will awake for us and bring you and me to the yard gate to watch the whins and the bog holes, cart tracks, old stables where time begins. Oh, after Christmas, we'll have no need to go searching for the difference that sets an old phrase burning. We'll hear it in the whispered argument of a churning, or in the streets where the village boys are lurching. And we'll hear it among decent men too, who barrow dung in gardens under trees, wherever life pours ordinary plenty. Won't we be rich, my love and I, and please God we shall not ask for reason's payment, the why of heartbreaking strangeness in dreeping hedges, nor analyse God's breath in common statement. We have thrown into the dustbin the clay-minted wages of pleasure, knowledge, and the conscious hour, and Christ comes with a January flower.
Thank you. And now Tiarnán Ó Duinnchinn will play a piece for us on the uileann pipes, and while that is happening, members of the Kavanagh family will lay a wreath on the grave. thank you, everybody, for your concentration. And now we will move back to the Patrick Kavanagh Centre, and there we will have some formal speeches, because there is a civic end to this whole ceremony as well. But thank you for your concentration, and thank you for taking part. And I hope that some of us that will be here, us is an interesting word, but looking in front we have school children here, and they will be able to remember this perhaps in another 50 years. Now we got a lovely few minutes here to do it, and so if we can go and leave quietly. It's a graveyard, and apart from that, graveyards are dangerous enough places to be walking around. So thank you very much, everybody.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Now, there's still some seats on the galleries for those who are standing if you wish to take a seat. There are seats up here on my left, and I think there's still some available spaces on the right. I'd like, on behalf of the Inniskeen Development Group and the Patrick Kavanagh Society, to welcome all our distinguished guests to the Patrick Kavanagh Centre. The exhibition, as you can see, has been moved to make some room here, and we're about to undertake major renovations. And we hope to see you all back when this centre reopens. I'd like to welcome all our public representatives, our TDs, senators and councillors, and our Chief Executive Officer, Eamon O'Sullivan from Monaghan County Council. And of course, I welcome you, the followers and admirers of Patrick Kavanagh. First of all, I'm going to call on the Cathaoirleach of Monaghan County Council, Councillor Cathy Bennett, to address the meeting. Councillor Bennett.
So, a very good afternoon to you all here today, and a very warm welcome to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the poet Patrick Kavanagh. It is a great pleasure that we welcome you all today, especially Fergal O'Quigley, who has come on behalf of Minister Humphreys, Fiona Jane Hislop, Cabinet Secretary of in the Scottish Government, TDs, Senators, Councillors, distinguished guests, and of course all the local school children. I would like to begin by acknowledging a debt of gratitude to the very important people here today, especially those who recited the poems at the graveyard. They were excellent. Thank you. I would also like to commend the Inniskeen Development Group, whose committee has managed and run the centre and have done so since it opened its doors in 1994. They are very dependent on volunteer support, and this is a huge undertaking for any community group. I believe it is an important day today, and we acknowledge that if it weren't for their trudged efforts and personal sacrifice on part of the individuals of this committee, the church, the centre, would have fallen into dereliction. The same can be said for the Poets' Rest coffee shop and the Church of Ireland Church, and his historic graveyard and round tower by the river. They would have suffered a similar fate. But because of the sterling work of a handful of individuals, with the support of the community, these invaluable heritage assets have been saved from posterity, and County Monaghan is certainly richer for this. They have kept the Kavanagh flame burning through their dedication and hard work, and that deserves a round of applause, in my opinion. A lot of excellent work has been done, and now it is the question of moving forward from here. And we are pulling together the various stakeholders behind a new vision for celebrating this Son of Monaghan. Bringing Kavanagh to life means injecting new life, new ideas and new resources, be they financial, human or technical, in the centre and the wider area. In his speech, the Chief Executive, Eamon O'Sullivan, of Monaghan County Council will outline the plans for the redevelopment of this building, and also the work of arts consultant Doran Brown, who will provide tailored Kavanagh vision for moving forward. Put simply though, what we are attempting to do is two main aims. One, to enhance Kavanagh's reputation and to raise his profile, so that his work is better known and appreciated and much more accessible to a wider audience. The second aim is to increase the number of visitors to the Kavanagh Centre and the various significant sites in Kavanagh Country, so that the immediate area and county will benefit from his legacy. Today's commemoration event, which was organised by Monaghan's culture team in conjunction with the Patrick Kavanagh Centre, can be seen as a sign of our intent for the future. I'd like to thank those involved in organising the event, which was funded through the Creative Ireland initiative, and I hope to attend many more successful events in this revamped building in the near coming years. Gormila mai agah galéir.
Thank you, Kathy. I would now like to call on Eamon O'Sullivan, Chief Executive Officer of Monaghan County Council. Eamon.
Minister Hislop, Fergal, on behalf of the Minister, members of the Oireachtas, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, and particularly the Kavanagh family members that are here today. Firstly, I think after such a truly unique and special commemoration, I feel very inadequate to follow up on the words that we heard at the graveside. And I really, while we couldn't give a round of applause because of the respect we were showing in the graveyard, I would ask you now to join with me and to give a very, very strong round of applause for our guests. It's such a privilege for me as Chief Executive to join with the Cathaoirleach and the members of the Council in being a small part of this special commemoration. Kavanagh has left a huge legacy and has gifted this county with the volumes of his work. As the Cathaoirleach mentioned, Art, Rosaleen and Larry and the rest of the members of the Kavanagh Resource Centre have carried that burden and have kept the flame and that legacy alive for the past 25 years, and they deserve such appreciation from us and gratitude from us for doing so. I think we in Monaghan County Council, working with the committee and the Inniskeen Development Association, recognise that there is a piece of work to be done if we were to further the work of the last 25 years. It starts with the physical infrastructure. And last year, working with the committee, we were very, very happy that Minister Humphreys awarded approximately €189,000 for structural works on the centre here. And Monaghan County Council are matching that, so that the first phase of the development work will be to ensure that the structure is preserved and is fit for the purpose for which we intend to continue the development work. The second piece, in the second phase of our work then, is to look at, I suppose, making sure that what we have preserved and conserved is now enjoyed by visitors, both national and international, in a way, I suppose, that the modern visitor expects. And that means upgrading the visitor experience, using obviously digital media now to reach a wider audience and a younger generation that effectively expect that they will have so much at their fingertips. And I think we've got to try and actually ensure that we are catering to the needs of, I suppose, 21st century Ireland and beyond. And the second phase, we have an application in preparation at the moment to the Fáilte Ireland in their capital programme with regard to delivering on the second phase and updating and upgrading the whole interactive experience and the visitor experience. We also have, I think, embarked, hopefully, or taken a very small step, or the first step, on also looking at ensuring that the artistic vision is, I suppose, nurtured and preserved and disseminated in the right way. And we're very fortunate that Sean Dorn and Liam Brown, whom I hope are here today, I haven't seen them, but I hope they are with us today, are arts consultants that are working on us to develop and to devise a strategy that will enable us then to move forward in the coming years and to ensure that, I think, I suppose, that we do justice to this tremendous volume and legacy of work that has been presented to us. And we have, I suppose, we are custodians of that, and we must therefore be very careful in how we interpret it and how we actually try to make sure that we do it justice. And I think, you know, the future potential of Kavanagh probably is really probably even beyond my imagination, but I think for his home place, for its hinterland, and bearing in mind that so much of what Kavanagh wrote about is still there and can still be experienced and can still be visited and is still intact, and that's truly remarkable as well. But we do have a duty to share that with, as I said, many of our people up and down the country and beyond. And I think that's a challenge for us, but one that I think Monaghan County Council are very confident that, working with the members of the Resource Centre and the Inniskeen Development Association, developing a strong partnership with them, that together we can do him justice, and that actually that will be to the benefit of Inniskeen, to County Monaghan, and to, I suppose, look at visitor and tourism in the area as well. Once again, I must join with the Cathaoirleach in thanking the committee and the society for allowing us to be part of such a special commemoration today. I also wish to take the opportunity to thank my own staff, the culture team, who have worked very hard to actually, again, to prepare and ensure that today's event went so well. To thank Minister Hislop for joining us on this special occasion. And to thank each and every one of you for being part of, I think, what was such a special commemoration of Monaghan's most famous son. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, our next speaker is a native of Ayrshire who received her early education in Alloway the birthplace of Scotland's national poet, Robert Burns. As we strove to develop this centre, Seamus Cassidy, Thomas Ruddy and the late Father Peter McGuinness visited the Burns Centre and were inspired by what they saw and the warm welcome they received there. So please give Minister Fiona Haslip, Cabinet Secretary for Culture, Tourism and External Affairs in the Scottish Government, a very warm Irish welcome. Inniskeen.
Thank you very much, and first of all can I thank in particular Roslyn Carney, also Sorley McConnell and Cathy Bennett for the invitation to be here, and for Heather Humphreys to give me the opportunity to join with you today in what was such a precious cultural moment. And there can be no greater tribute to a poet than to hear poets of today reading works in the birthplace, and to hear those words spoken, I think is a great tribute to your son of Monaghan. And of course, to be here in Inniskeen, it's my first time here. It's my first time to visit the beautiful Oriel, and to be here to share with you in this commemoration, but also a celebration of remarkable work. And there can be no doubt the importance of poetry to this land, to this county, and to this country. And if poetry is the language of universal truths, sometimes truths that we want to hear and sometimes truths that we don't want to hear, those universal truths that are written by poets across the centuries are things that we want and we must hear and relate to. And I come from Alloway, which is the birthplace of our national bard, Robert Burns, and his work relates to the land, to the experience, to the harshness, not of the stony soil of Monaghan, but to the rough and challenge of the Ayrshire fields that he grew up in. And that sense of place and the poetry that expresses that sense of place, of love, is so important to all of us, and these are truths that reach out across time. I wish you well in your development of your centre here, and anything that we can share from Scotland and our experience, I would want to do so. So the richness that you have here, the preciousness of which you cherish your poetry, and the preciousness of that poetry of Kavanagh must be remembered. And Inniskeen, of course, is a place that he loved, where the fictional Tye Flynn looked at his fields with so much attention and affection. And it is, of course, on the Inniskeen Road that the bicycles went by in 2s and 3s, and where Kavanagh felt he was king of banks and stones and every blooming thing. So Inniskeen can rightly claim him and truly be proud of him. So it is a great privilege to be here, and poetry can link it and connect between counties, between countries and globally, and you have something very precious here. I wish you well in how you cherish it and nurture it and share it for the future. But it's been a great honour and a joy to mark the life of such a great writer and a poet, to learn more about your land, more about your relationship to place, and poetry, place and people will connect us for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss.
Unfortunately, our Minister Heather Humphreys has been unable to attend this event due to circumstances beyond her control. But we have... That's life. C'est la vie. But our next speaker is Fergus O'Quigley, the Assistant Secretary General of the Department, and he's no stranger to County Monaghan. I believe he's been here on a number of occasions before, so I'd like you all to put your hands together and give him a warm welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm discussing with Cabinet Secretary Hislop on the way down from the graveyard, and we said we can't possibly have an official to come at the end because there's nothing worse than that. So we said that Cabinet Secretary Hislop would speak at the end. First, it didn't quite work out. But look, it's a great honour for me to represent Minister Heather Humphreys. When the Scottish Government approached the Department to say that Fiona Hislop was coming to Dublin on the 30th of November, and there had been another unfortunate clash the previous time Minister Hislop was here, and we both agreed, Minister Humphrey says, I can't not meet her this time. But I can't not go to the Patrick Kavanagh event. This is going to be one of the big events in Monaghan this year. I have to be there. So there was no option but to ensure that Fiona Hislop came to Monaghan instead, and that not only that, we will have a little culture summit in Agnes Burnham's cottage a few miles away in Stephenstown. And everything went to plan until the phone call came at 9 o'clock this morning. Minister Humphreys had to be in the Dáil chamber at 12 o'clock, and there was no option but to go. So I've been drafted in the last moment, and I'm sorry for the disappointment you all feel as a result of that. It would be a day of mixed emotions for the Minister. She really wanted to be here. It means a huge amount to her. She's invested, she's given some money to invest in the centre here. And she's, I suppose, in many respects, some people would say she's just been promoted as Minister for Business Enterprise and Innovation, so it will be a day of mixed emotion for her. So I'm now delivering her speech, which starts off as a proud native of Monaghan. Of course, I'm not a proud native of Monaghan, but I'm not too far away. I'm from Dundalk, and I'm very conscious that Inniskeen parish stretches into County Louth. My own mother, thank you. My own mother never missed the Patrick Kavanagh weekend, and she always came back regaling us at home stories of the McArdle brothers, and it was a great pleasure to see the brothers reading at the Graveside this morning. My dad, however, according to my mum, considered Kavanagh a damn nuisance, as I think they had a few interactions in the streets of Dundalk in the 40s and 50s, where before Kavanagh went to Dublin, and where my dad worked all his life. So with those couple of connections. Obviously Inniskeen has been the inspiration for much of his work, and obviously ultimately became his final resting place just a few short steps away. Although Dublin was his home in later life, it is clear that Monaghan was never far from his thoughts. So it is very fitting to celebrate the life of this true son of Monaghan on the 50th anniversary of his death. His love of poetry started at a young age. He once said, I majored in kicking a rag ball, and having left school at the tender age of 13, he became self-educated through extensive reading, and for 20 years lived a life as an ordinary young Irish farmer of that period, working the family holding. His parents bought a small farm for him at Shancoduff townland, and he participated in the normal pursuits of rural life, bought and sold at fairs and market, attended wakes, funerals and weddings of neighbours, and cycled to the local dances. This rural background was reflected in his first volume of poems, The Ploughman and Other Poems, which was published in 1936 by Macmillan. Published to great acclaim. 2 years later, The Green Fool, which went into greater detail of his life in rural Monaghan, was published. Tarry Flynn, which was published in 1948, was banned initially for being indecent and obscene. It was, by definition, a fictional account of rural life, but more likely based on anecdotes that Kavanagh would have heard while living here. He was formed by his experiences in his native Monaghan, and later in his adopted Dublin. He constantly repeated country townland names to connect with his later native countryside. This style is repeated with street names in Dublin in his later poems. In fact, most of his poems are geographically rooted. When we had our little summit without Minister Humphreys a short while ago in Agnes Byrne's cottage, Cabinet Secretary Hislop was very strong about the sense of place as part of our culture, of our identity in a globalising world, and by God, Kavanagh had that. Stony grey soil, which we heard this morning, clearly depicts his awareness of his surroundings. In that seminal work, he's ill at ease in a countryside and culture he condemns. Words such as clogged and burgled readily display his sense of desperation. Throughout his life, Kavanagh had a love-hate relationship with the area. In Dublin, he wrote many satirical poems condemning the prevalent hypocrisy of the literary and political establishment in Ireland. One wonders what he would have said about the events of the past few weeks, but I probably shouldn't say anything as a civil servant. In fact, he was never afraid to court controversy. His standout work in 1942, The Great Hunger, was seen by many as an attack on the Catholic Church in Ireland. Copies of the Horizon literary magazine in which it was published were seized by McArdle Síochána on the order of the Minister for Justice, Gerard Boland, brother of Harry. Ironically, only 4 years later, Kavanagh had a job on the Catholic magazine The Standard. A watershed moment in his writing career occurred following his operation for lung cancer in the mid-1950s. Sitting by the Grand Canal in Dublin after his operation, he seemed to have rediscovered his poetic voice. He said of that moment, "As a poet, I was born in or about 1955, the place of my birth being the banks of the Grand Canal. After his brush with death, he could look at life and nature with a newfound optimism and enthusiasm. Nature is glorified in the manner and content of his poetry written from then on. Kavanagh had come full circle and was at peace with himself and the world." Of course, many have been influenced by his works, not least James Heaney and Michael Longley. Heaney often citing Kavanagh as a major influence. So just to wrap up, Minister Humphreys once again has asked me to thank everybody involved in organising this wonderful day here today in Inniskeen to remember and celebrate Patrick Kavanagh, and she wishes everybody well in the work that's being done here locally to bring to the forefront an often overlooked giant of the Irish literary awards. As Patrick Kavanagh said in one simple line, outlining his practice of his art, "I dabbled in verse and it became my life." So I wish you all an enjoyable afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fergal. I now call on Ben Reel, local singer and songwriter, to perform his acoustic rendition of Raglan Road. Ben Reel. It's an honour to do this.
On Raglan Road of an autumn day, I saw her first and that her dark hair would weave a snare that I might one day rue. I saw the danger and I passed along the enchanted way, and I said, let grief be a fallen leaf at the dawning of the day. On Grafton Street in November we tripped lightly along the ledge of a deep ravine where can be seen two words of passion play, and the Queen of Hearts still making sarks, and I not making hay. Oh, I love too much, and by such and such is happiness drawn away. I give her the gifts of the mind, I give her the secret signs. It's known to all the artists who have known true gods of sand and stone, and the words and tint without a stint. I give her the poems to say. We're running there, and a shiny dark hair like clouds over fields in May. Street where all goes meet, I see her walking now, away from me so hurriedly. My reason must allow that I had loved not as I should, a creature that's made of clay. When the angel moves, the clay he loves has wings at the dawn of the day.
Thank you, Ben and Tiarnán. Now, as I've already said, the next part of our programme takes place in the community centre. So if you wish to make your way down to the community centre, we'll see you there in a short while. Thank you very much.